Few animated series have managed to keep the spark alive over time, and even fewer have achieved what the Amazing World of Gumball did in just 6 seasons, to constantly evolve, reinvent itself without betrayal, and improve episode after episode, while other popular productions fell into repetition, fatigue, or oblivion. But how was it possible for a show with such absurd characters, such a chaotic visual world, and such unpredictable humor to become a silent masterpiece of modern animation? What secrets does Elmore hide behind its jokes, its colors, and its apparent simplicity? Today we're going to dive deep into the reasons, and a few surprises, that explain why Gumball never got boring. And I promise you'll want to stay until the end, because what you'll discover will forever change the way you look at this series. 1. An exceptionally diverse and lively cast of characters. One of the fundamental pillars that drove the show's success and longevity was, without a doubt, the meticulous and creative construction of its characters. In any narrative work, be it an epic drama, a light comedy, or a children's animated series, the characters are the heart that gives life to the story. In the case of Gumball, its cast didn't just serve that purpose. It elevated each episode with absurd interactions, distinct personalities, and emotional depth rarely seen in content aimed at a young audience. From the Watterson family nucleus to the most secondary and episodic characters in the eccentric town of Elmore, every figure that appears on screen is carefully designed to contribute something different. The result is an animated ecosystem where strangeness and emotion coexist in balance. Even those characters that might seem like one-joke caricatures, like Banana Joe, with his contagious laugh and erratic behavior, end up gaining nuance and moments of prominence that make them memorable. The Watterson family, of course, is at the center of it all. Gumball, Darwin, Aeneas, Nicole, and Richard form a perfectly balanced constellation of madness, tenderness, chaos, and satire. Each represents an exaggerated archetype, but also something profoundly human. Gumball is the eternal trouble seeker, a boy with an overflowing imagination, impulsive to the point of self-destruction, but also full of love for his family and friends. Darwin, his adopted brother and best friend, is a fish who learned to walk, talk, and feel like a human, but whose purity of heart makes him unique. He represents loyalty, empathy, and emotional sensitivity. Aeneas, the youngest sister, is the family's brilliant mind, a child prodigy more mature than all the adults in the show combined, but who also suffers from not being taken seriously due to her age. Nicole, the mother, is a fascinating figure within the animated universe. A working woman, fiercely protective, competitive, and emotionally complex. Over the course of the series, deep layers of her personality are revealed. Childhood traumas, the pressure of being the family's provider, and her constant struggle between control and collapse. And Richard, the father, is probably one of the most absurd and hilarious characters ever created, an adult who refuses to grow up, whose childish and carefree worldview makes him the perfect catalyst for ridiculous situations. Yet he also has sincere moments of tenderness, where we see him as a father who, despite his clumsiness, loves his family deeply. Beyond the immediate Watterson household, Gumball excels in creating a tapestry of supporting characters that feel just as vital and unpredictable as the protagonists. Characters like Penny, Tobias, Carrie, and Tina aren't just background noise. They're unique voices with their own stories, emotions, and personal arcs that enrich the show's social world. Penny, for instance, begins as the archetypal love interest, but gradually reveals a more complex identity, both emotionally and literally, as she breaks free from her peanut shell to become a shapeshifter, a powerful metaphor for personal growth and self-acceptance. Carrie, the resident ghost, might seem like a gloomy trope at first, but her subtle sarcasm, emotional vulnerability, and unlikely romantic arc with Darwin transform her into one of the show's most compelling figures. These characters demonstrate how the writers resist static roles, allowing even the most minor players to evolve, surprise the audience, and participate meaningfully in the thematic fabric of the series. Furthermore, the show's animation style directly reflects the diversity of its characters, not just in personality, but in visual form. From 2D hand-drawn figures to CGI renderings, stop-motion puppets, and photographic cutouts, Gumball is a visual collage that mirrors the chaotic, multicultural, and multimedia reality of the modern world. This stylistic variety allows each character to literally stand out, emphasizing their individuality not only through behavior and dialogue, but also through texture, dimension, and movement. The character Banana Joe is made of photographic textures and behaves in a surreal, slapstick manner. Meanwhile, Clayton is a claymation figure who can shapeshift, a visual gag that doubles as character-driven humor. This integration of form and function adds layers to every scene and reinforces the idea that in Gumball, no one is just filler. Every character, no matter how strange or fleeting, has a place in the emotional and comedic architecture of the show. 2. Elmore, a rich, surreal universe full of potential. Beyond the Watersons, one of Gumball's most notable traits is its ability to turn secondary, even tertiary, characters into key pieces for the dynamism and richness of its universe. While other animated series tend to limit themselves to a small core of main characters, Gumball expanded its world with overwhelming creativity. Elmore, the fictional town where the story takes place, is not just a setting, it's another character, a box of surprises that never stops evolving. Every corner of Elmore is inhabited by creatures that defy all logic: a talking banana, an emotional cloud, a piece of toast that goes to school, a shy cactus, a romantic balloon, a police donut, a teenage Tyrannosaurus Rex, a horned peanut, a melancholic ghost, an Italian puppet, a nerdy potato. The list is as long as it is absurd, and yet each of these characters finds their place in the narrative. They're active parts of the protagonist's school, social, and emotional lives. Far from being mere decorations, all have their own stories, motivations, contradictions, and even narrative arcs, however brief they may be. This creates a sense of constant discovery. You never know if the episode will center on Gumball and Darwin trying to solve a household problem, or if, suddenly, you'll watch an episode starring Larry, the cashier who works at every business in Elmore, questioning capitalism. Some of the best episodes arise precisely when these secondary characters take the lead, such as The Sidekick, where Gumball and Darwin try to turn a useless character into their personal Robin, or The Void, which reveals that deleted characters still seek justice within the show's narrative system. This approach also allows for a wide variety of tones and plots. There are completely ridiculous episodes like The Tape, where the characters record their own action movie. But there are also episodes loaded with unexpected emotional depth, like The Choices, which explores Nicole's backstory and the decisions that led to her current life. This alternation between absurd and moving is one of the show's greatest achievements. Moreover, thanks to this broadcast, Gumball avoided falling into the trap of repeating itself. With dozens of characters, every interaction, conflict, or comedic situation could be presented from entirely new angles. Even episodes that began with well-worn premises, like classic school misunderstandings or friend fights, managed to feel fresh thanks to the show's ensemble focus. In addition, Elmore's geography itself reflects the show's commitment to unpredictability and variety. Locations like the school, the Watersons' home, the Rainbow Factory, and even the mysterious Void are not just revisited backdrops. They morph and shift in tone and design, depending on the story being told. One day, the school might feel like a bureaucratic nightmare filled with Kafkaesque rules. The next, it's a chaotic playground for superhero fantasies. The malleability of space in Gumball contributes to the show's dreamlike, surreal atmosphere, where logic bends to emotion and metaphor. Finally, this ever-expanding universe allowed the show to tackle themes far beyond what one might expect from a children's cartoon. Through Elmore's characters and settings, Gumball engaged with satire, parody, social critique, and existential questions, sometimes within a single episode. Whether mocking consumer culture, dissecting toxic masculinity, or pondering the absurdity of the universe itself, the town of Elmore became a flexible stage for ideas, both hilarious and profound. Rather than confining its stories to the domestic lives of its main characters, the series boldly ventured outward, giving the town itself a soul, a voice, and a role as chaotic and meaningful as the Watersons themselves. 3. A revolutionary visual style that breaks all conventions. If the characters and stories built Gumball's emotional foundation, its visual style is what turned it into a unique piece of television. The Amazing World of Gumball is not just animated. It is a visual experiment in constant motion. It fuses hand-drawn 2D animation, 3D characters, photographic backgrounds, stop-motion puppets, digital effects, pixel art, and even live-action actors, all in the same scene. And the most incredible thing? It works. Not only does it not feel messy, it enhances the narrative. This visual daring allowed the series to constantly surprise its audience. From one episode to the next, you never knew what you were going to see. Perhaps Darwin would be in 2D, while talking to a 3D T-Rex walking through a real hallway made of photos. Or Gumball might suddenly break into a live-action chase. The different animation styles weren't just a visual gimmick, they were narrative tools that allowed the show to play with genre, parody, and emotion. For example, in The Job, the episode parodies multiple television genres with constant changes in animation style, moving from noir to action films, sitcoms, and even anime. In The Signal, the characters are affected by a visual glitch that literally breaks the episode's format, turning their bodies into distorted shapes and their movements into corrupted animation files. And in The Puppets, Darwin is trapped by creepy sock puppets that use a completely different visual language, leading to one of the most surreal and unsettling episodes of the series. This versatility kept the series unpredictable and always ahead of its audience's expectations. While other shows reuse sets or backgrounds to save budget, Gumball turned each episode into an opportunity to visually innovate. The team at Cartoon Network Studios Europe never rested on their laurels. They kept testing new technologies, styles, and techniques, and that effort was noticeable. You could feel the love and artistic ambition behind each frame. What's more, this hybrid visual strategy wasn't just about aesthetics. It was central to the show's identity as a postmodern animated work. Gumball used visual chaos to reflect thematic chaos. The overwhelming flood of media, the merging of internet culture with real life, the collapse of genre boundaries. In a single episode, you might feel like you're watching a parody of The Matrix, a YouTube meme compilation, a slice-of-life drama, and a surrealist art film. And somehow, it all felt cohesive. The visual language became a mirror of the modern experience, especially for younger viewers growing up immersed in digital media. Additionally, this commitment to visual experimentation allowed Gumball to communicate emotions and psychological states in ways that traditional animation simply couldn't. When a character is anxious, the world might literally fall apart around them. When they feel joy, color saturates the frame. When they are lost or afraid, everything might dissolve into grayscale static or digital distortion. Animation, in Gumball, isn't just decoration. It's an emotional compass. It bends and shifts with the characters, and that deep connection between form and feeling is one of the main reasons the show resonated so powerfully with audiences of all ages. 4. Humor. That is meta, irreverent, and endlessly inventive. If there's one element that made Gumball legendary beyond its visuals and characters, it's its unmatched sense of humor. Rarely has an animated series for children dared to push the boundaries of absurdity, irony, and fourth wall breaking like this one did, without ever losing accessibility for a young audience. It's a mix of physical comedy, wordplay, surreal gags, social satire, and above all, a ton of meta-references that transform the series into an intelligent and rebellious work. Gumball doesn't just tell stories, it comments on how stories are told. Many episodes parody cinematic or television genres, and the characters are often aware that they are inside a fictional narrative. They talk to the camera, criticize the script, replay scenes to correct mistakes, and even argue with the narrator. This self-awareness turns the series into a playground of ideas where anything is possible. No convention is sacred, and all cliches are exposed, dismantled, and transformed. For example, in The Disaster, Gumball experiences a glitch in reality and tries to understand why the world is out of control, only to discover that someone is rewriting the script. In The Remote, the family fights over who controls the TV, which turns into an epic battle that jumps between animation styles and even commercials. And in The Copycats, the show mocks a Chinese series that plagiarized its characters, in one of the most hilarious and daring displays of narrative self-defense ever seen on TV. The writers also didn't shy away from critiquing social, educational, political, and even corporate systems. In The Test, the show questions standardized testing and the pressure on students to meet arbitrary criteria. In the news, it mocks the sensationalism of media. In the name, it reflects on personal identity and cultural expectations. All of this is disguised as children's humor, but behind the jokes lies a sharp critical spirit. This is perhaps what made Gumball so beloved by both children and adults. While young viewers enjoyed the silliness and adventures, older audiences found sophisticated commentary and comedic brilliance worthy of comparison with the best adult satire. Each layer of humor added depth and replay value. You could rewatch the same episode years later and catch new jokes you hadn't noticed before. Moreover, Gumball wasn't afraid to be weird. In fact, it leaned into its weirdness with pride. The show's writers clearly understood that children have a much greater tolerance for surrealism and absurdity than most adults assume. Episodes like The Night, which tells a story entirely from the perspective of unconscious family members while they sleep, or The Oracle, where Banana Barbara can paint the future, are boldly bizarre and unapologetically experimental. This willingness to embrace nonsense, confusion, and randomness made the humor feel alive and untamed, a refreshing departure from the overly polished, formulaic jokes of other series. Finally, the comedic timing and delivery were razor sharp. Whether through lightning-fast editing, unexpected punchlines, deadpan reactions, or escalating ridiculousness, Gumball mastered the rhythm of modern comedy. It felt like it was written by a room of stand-up comedians, animators, meme lords, and philosophers all at once. The show had its finger on the pulse of internet humor before it became the dominant cultural language, which is why, even years later, its jokes still feel surprisingly current. 5. Emotional and philosophical depth beneath the madness. Although The Amazing World of Gumball is primarily known for its surreal comedy and explosive visual creativity, many fans point to its emotional moments as what truly cemented their love for the series. The creators understood that behind every laugh, there must be something real. And Gumball is full of reflections on life, identity, family, loss, frustration, love, and existential angst. Some episodes surprise by exploring extremely mature themes. In The Choices, we delve into Nicole's past and how her youthful decisions shaped her destiny. In The Parents, Darwin tries to find his biological family, only to confront a difficult truth and reaffirm his bond with the Wattersons. In The Night, each character's inner thoughts are revealed as they sleep, exposing their fears, desires, and loneliness. Even Richard, who often acts like a walking joke, shows layers of vulnerability, especially when he feels he's failing as a father. Anais, despite being the most rational and intelligent, suffers deeply from feeling alone and misunderstood. And Gumball and Darwin, despite their antics, frequently question their own identity and purpose in a world that doesn't always make sense. What makes these moments impactful is that they're not isolated. They're organically woven into the chaos. The series never becomes a moralistic lecture, but rather allows emotional truth to emerge naturally from absurd situations. And in that balance, between ridiculous and real, lies the show's greatness. 6. A team committed to artistic and narrative freedom. Finally, the key to Gumball's ongoing freshness was the creative freedom enjoyed by its team. Created by Ben Bocquelet, a French-British animator with a background in advertising, the show began not with a grand vision, but with a pile of misfit ideas. Bocquelet took a set of rejected characters, each one strange, incomplete, or conceptually inconsistent, and instead of throwing them away, built an entire universe around them. That decision to embrace the discarded, to find beauty and potential in failure, set the philosophical foundation for the series. Gumball would never be a show about perfection. It would be a show about experimentation, chaos, and the possibility of turning every wrong turn into something unforgettable. That creative DNA gave the show its wild, unpredictable energy from day one. The writing team, composed of comedians, animators, and writers from diverse cultural and creative backgrounds, was not only allowed, but actively encouraged to take risks. That's why Gumball could jump from an episode structured like a sitcom to one styled as a mockumentary, a silent film, or an anime homage. Some episodes ignored traditional storytelling arcs entirely, opting instead for conceptual experiments or pure thematic riffs. In The Night, for example, the plot unfolds through the subconscious dreams of the characters, with no dialogue and minimal context. In The Signal, a deliberate visual glitch corrupts the episode's internal logic, turning the characters into distorted fragments of themselves. These were not accidents. They were calculated creative decisions made possible because the team trusted its audience. They believed that children could handle complexity, ambiguity, and surrealism, and they were right. Beyond the writer's room, this culture of innovation extended to every corner of the show's production. Animators were encouraged to mix styles, break form, and introduce new visual languages when the story demanded it. The voice actors were often invited to improvise or to add emotional inflection that deviated from the written script. Editors and sound designers shaped scenes with fast, unpredictable rhythms, embedding internet-style humor, sudden cuts, awkward silences, distorted sounds, long before those tropes became dominant in online media. Every department was treated not as a machine to execute instructions, but as a living contributor to the creative identity of the show. The result was a feeling of genuine spontaneity, a sense that Gumball could go anywhere, say anything, and look however it wanted, as long as it stayed true to its emotional core. More importantly, this creative freedom allowed the series to evolve over time, without becoming stale. Many long-running shows fall into the trap of self-replication, reusing jokes, relying on familiar plots, or reducing characters to predictable patterns. Gumball actively resisted that stagnation. When a storytelling approach began to feel overused, the team pivoted. If a character had been overexposed, they stepped back to spotlight another. This flexibility allowed the show to maintain its sense of discovery. Even in later seasons, viewers could expect the unexpected. New characters, new worlds, new narrative devices. In an age where audiences can sense formula a mile away, Gumball stayed fresh because it refused to obey its own formula. Finally, The Amazing World of Gumball is one of the rare examples in modern television where a network trusted an unconventional vision. Cartoon Network gave Bocalé and his collaborators the room to be bold, weird, and satirical without watering it down for marketability. There was no mandate to soften the humor, simplify the visuals, or avoid difficult themes. Instead, the network leaned into the chaos. And that partnership allowed the show to become something truly singular. Most shows begin to fade as they age. Gumball, in contrast, seemed to sharpen with time, becoming more aware of its voice, its audience, and its cultural moment. That unfiltered creative process, messy, collaborative, and gloriously risky, is what ultimately made The Amazing World of Gumball one of the most imaginative and enduring series of its generation. Conclusion: why Gumball will never be forgotten. The Amazing World of Gumball never became boring because it was never afraid to change. It evolved without betraying its essence. It embraced absurdity, but never abandoned emotional truth. It broke every known animation rule, but always stayed narratively coherent. And above all, it trusted that its viewers, of all ages, were capable of following its crazy, beautiful, hilarious, and sometimes heartbreaking journey. It's not just an animated series. It's a declaration of creative freedom, a celebration of imperfection, and one of the most brilliant testaments to what children's television can be when treated with love, intelligence, and courage. If you haven't seen it yet, now's the time. And if you already did, watch it again. There's always something new to discover in Elmore.